Number 5 is going to be Rick and Morty.
I need to watch that.
You really do.
I need to watch that. It mentions Jan Michael Vincent. I have to watch that. I love Jan Michael
First of all, it's just a really well-made show. It's got a fun intro, although there's no lyrics in its theme song, which gives it a knock. But it's got a good little fun cartoon intro. It's beautifully animated. It's really well voice acted. But there's 2 things that work in tandem to make Rick and Morty number 5 on the top 10 list for me. One is the comedy. Rick and Morty is hilarious.
That's what I hear.
Here go Rick! I need you to turn into a car, Morty. Long time ago I implanted microchips in your bloodstream and turn you into a car, Morty. I need you to focus, Morty. I could make Rick and Morty references for the rest of this video and still not be out. It's almost every line in that show is quotable. It's fun and it's hilarious. It's one of the funniest things I've ever seen, which makes the second reason it ranks so highly for me come out of left field. It's a dark comedy. Like, it has a lot of funny moments, but when Rick and Morty gets serious, I mean, it's like a gut punch serious.
Yeah, I've read articles on IGN and stuff about that.
There's the scene where after he sees his ex-girlfriend at the end, where it's in the garage and the little laser crystal, I don't want to get too specific for him. That scene is like, kind of comes out of left field, but also it doesn't. And Rick is not a one-note character. He's a very complex character, and whenever they play with the complexities behind what Rick is, it's really emotional and beautiful. And then, of course, anyone who's seen Rick and Morty, all I have to say is the scene with Hurt in it. That scene. And to be fair, Hurt is a song that has a really special meaning to me.
Johnny Cash?
No, the 9 Inch Nails version.
Trent Reznor, the original version.
Yeah, they're both good. I feel like the difference is Johnny Cash is kind of the song of a young man who is kind of like, I've made these mistakes, I can turn my life around, I can try and do better.
That's what you get from the Johnny Cash version?
No, sorry, the 9 Inch Nails one. Because it's a younger point of view, so it's still kind of like it's not inherently hopeful of a song, but it's still this idea of...
It's almost like he wrote a suicide note. I didn't mean to get off on a tangent.
No, but to me, when I hear that song, I can relate with it more because I'm younger, and I do remember feeling that way, but I can also... I'm not the person I used to be, if that makes sense. Whereas the Johnny Cash one, I think, is almost more depressing because that's an old man. It is too late. The Johnny Cash version is the song of a man.
He's looking back at the regrets of his life.
It's too late to be a better person. Like, you can't repair those bridges, but you can maybe be a better person now. It's too late at that point. And that scene with her, that one always gets me. Gosh, I feel like almost all of mine from here on out, save one, are gonna have depressing moments. But
Son of a good show that can work that in.
And that's what I love about Rick and Morty is it's both one of the funniest shows, but when Rick and Morty gets dark and it gets serious and it gets sad, Rick and Morty has made me cry a little bit.
Futurama can do that.
And
I was talking about earlier. Futurama has those
anything,
moments.
Anything that can both make me cry of laughter and joy and of sadness within the same show, that's powerful. And Rick and Morty does both on multiple occasions.
Now, I have decided. I need to watch Rick and Morty. You need to watch Futurama.
Okay.
We really need to do that.
I'll add that to my list. You add that to you?
Fair enough. Number
bad.
5?
Yeah, it's bad.
My number 5 is Beast Wars. He said a lot. He really hit on a lot of the notes. Beast Wars, again, was done by the same people who did Reboot. It's what they did right after Reboot. The first Transformers cartoon in CGI. The CGI, especially for its time, was groundbreaking. I think it still holds up today. I still watch the show. I have all 3 seasons on DVD. I especially love seasons 2 and 3. I think this is the first Transformer cartoon where we really got a lot of character growth with Beast Wars. Sorry, quick cut. The camera ran out of power, so we're starting back where we were, which is frustrating because we were actually a little further along.
Yeah, we're going to rush through a couple of lists because of that.
I was talking about Beast Wars. I think it had a lot of good character development that G1 didn't have as much of it. G1 had some great character-defining moments and had some really good characters, but it had so many characters it couldn't focus on all of them. Beast Wars has a much smaller cast with characters rotating in and out, and it has more time to really flesh them out, give them personalities, and give them character arcs over the course of the 3 seasons. of the show. And I really like the way that's done. From Dinobot, who was very much the kind of loner who didn't fit in either camp. He wasn't quite a Predacon, so he tried to make his home with the Maximals. He didn't quite fit in with the Maximals, so he's very much on his own, which is something I think people growing up in school can relate to. It's a very real thing, not quite knowing where you fit in or just not fitting in with any particular clique or group. So I think he's a very relatable character. He's got a lot of honor to him that you normally don't see in the bad guys in Transformers from back then. I know IDW's really fleshed that out. I know they have. We don't see that as much
because I had a lot of stuff I added this last time.
Pre-war.
I just don't have the energy to go on about
we didn't have that as much in that time, especially in G1. The good guys were the good guys, the bad guys were the bad guys.
They did a good job at making him
Rampage, because he's a villain with a lot of character. He has a kind of an honor to him too, not in any way like Dinobots. It's hard to explain. But he has a very hard exterior. He's cold, he's merciless, he'll kill you in your sleep, whatever. But there is a soft spot in him that you don't really see. He has a very poetic way that he speaks sometimes and not others. But in the Transmutate episode, where he finds kind of a kindred spirit, and he really cares about this other character, and is horribly upset when this other character dies.
Again, he kind of reminds me of the Wild West villain who would kill mercilessly, but he didn't kill kids.
Yeah, there was a bit of a soul to him. Depth Charge, cool character. I know you like Depth Charge a lot, and Depth Charge and Rampage were great counterpoints for each other, because Depth Charge was very much an anti-hero. So Rampage wasn't the full-on villain like some villains, but Depth Charge wasn't the full-on hero like some heroes, and I think they're a good flip side to each other.
And I forgot to mention it in mine, but Quick Strike.
I love Quick Strike.
Oh, Tarnation!
And Inferno with his, yes, my queen! It had a lot of good humor in it. It did. It had action. This is a show that can make you laugh. It can pump up your adrenaline with the action sequences. It can make you cry. It does all of that really well, which is really impressive for a kid's cartoon. That was definitely exploring boundaries in animation for the time. And
excuse me.
And I think Dinobot's death was handled really well. As you mentioned, his death, most of the time if you ask people best deaths, they're going to say Optimus Prime. Optimus Prime is the death. It literally is the reason the 86 movie bombed. It's the reason the G.I. Joe movie went straight to video. It's the reason Duke's character arc was changed in the movie. It's
What do you mean,
the
coma?
Exactly. That's very obviously been changed with the dialogue. And it's the reason kids ran crying out of the streets.
The snake hole bleeding.
It's the reason why
coma?
season 3 was the last season of Transformers. Optimus Prime. It's the reason why they had to bring Optimus Prime back. It was a hugely iconic moment for a generation of children, and I'll stack Beast Wars' death right up with it. It's very sorrowful.
Dinobots.
It's very. Excuse me. Who did I say?
Beast Wars.
Okay. Dinobot. I've been literally up for 24 hours straight. I'll stack Dinobot's death up with that. It's very well done. The action scene is very well done. The death scene is very well done. The music over the death scene is very well done. Because this is a man he's having to fight the entire Predacon team. He is being pushed to his limit. And it's like 1 versus 6, 1 versus 7. And at the end, he is going forward on sheer will alone. He is about to drop. This is a guy who fights to the last, and he has a very touching death scene. And it's a very powerful episode, especially for a children's cartoon. So Beast Wars is my number 5. What's your number 5?
That was number 4.
No,
What's my
number 5.
What's your number 5?
You already said it. You got a list on it. Come on.
Number 5 was Avengers. Earth
That's
Mighty
right.
Yeah, Avengers Earth Mighty Heroes, in my opinion, is the best Avengers cartoon. I like.
It's really
I think it's better than Avengers Assemble and the cartoon, which was Avengers United like we stand. I didn't like it that much, but I do like the character developments. character developments of Iron Man, Hulk, Captain America, Black Widow, Hawkeye, Thor. My favorite episodes had to be the final 3 episodes of the first season, and like we also saw the Secret Invasion, which was based off the comics. When the Skrulls come to Earth and try to take over the Earth as heroes and politicians and villains, stuff like that. My favorite character is Captain America because I like the way Captain America was developed in the series, and that's my number 5 or 4.
Do you need tissue paper?
No.
Your eyes are just getting a little watery.
It does that.
He gets very emotional about Captain America.
We're almost caught up
man.
with where the video cut up. My number 4 is Voltron Legendary Defender. It hits a lot of marks for me. It's a sci-fi show. I love sci-fi.
Wake up! Wake up! Come on, Eric.
Matt Tracker.
Here's the thing.
IDW Matt Tracker's the best Matt
Keep
Tracker.
Keep going.
If you pass
Oh my
out,
gosh, that didn't even perk him up.
yeah, I know.
I'm surprised.
If you pass out, the audience is gonna pass out. If they see you yawning, they're gonna be yawning.
I'll take a finish this. I really don't.
Come on, Eric.
Stop being a baby. You got it, my boy.
I'm being serious.
We only got 4 more to
I
go.
don't think I can do it.
Stand up, do a little movement if you got to. Walk around, jog a little. Come on, get that blood pumping.
Amp up.
Get the blood pumping.
Keep going.
Want some coffee?
Keep going.
So Voltron Legendary Defender is just really well done. The animation is beautiful. The fight scenes are amazing. Especially some of those episodes, you'll have like 2 or 3 episodes straight of the intense, epic action.
Oh Lord,
This was the end of season 7. Oh, it's
boom, 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 boom,
orgasmic levels of action. The character development for all of them is really, really good. They're all very flawed characters. Every member of the main cast, Pidge, Lance, Keith, Shiro, Allura, they all have moments
They're very realistic characters.
where they're not perfect people, but it makes
It's easier to
it makes them more relatable and more
relatable,
admirable because they overcome those moments of weakness and moments of kind of shittiness. Moments of sketchiness. And they become more powerful characters, I think. And I really, really like that. I really love just the way they're done. For me, at least, I'm a huge fan of that. I love Keith. He's my favorite character. Usually I love the nerdy characters more, but Keith has just got such a great character arc from the kind of lost, reckless kid at the beginning of season 1 to a really amazing leader in the end of season 7. Shiro goes through some amazing stuff. One thing you mentioned last recording.
Eric on his phone over here.
One thing you mentioned last recording about Voltron is that the characters go through the ringer.
Oh, they do. They go through just the emotional ringer. They're constantly at these lows, like, oh man, gosh, we've just been devastated. How do we recover from this? How do I recover from this?
It's
They
remarkable
go through a lot
that they
emotionally.
keep going because there are like several points in the show where it's like, honestly, man, if y'all just quit right now, I don't think anyone could blame you. You really have had a rough. It's like every time they win, they lose. It's like, hey guys,
And it's like me after a rough night of competitive Overwatch.
Oh, never mind.
I'm just emotionally drained.
Never mind. It's brutal. And it really makes you feel for the characters, and it can get really dark and kind of depressing at times, but it's all in all a really
What are you doing?
I thought I saw something under your
That's a book.
bookcase. There's a movie.
Mario book. And I think there might be a movie. Listen, you take a heck of a time to get distracted with
Sorry. And it's really it's really good. And there's one thing, I'll be vague about it this time like I was last time, but there's a thing they did in the most recent season with one of the major characters.
He doesn't want to spoil it for him. He's a
Yeah,
little
he
behind.
hasn't caught up. He's on season 5. There's a thing they did in the most recent season with one of the major characters' backstory that kind of involves, a topical issue. And it was
handled really well.
It was handled it wasn't subtle, like it was obvious, but it was done supernaturally and organically. I last recording I drew comparisons to Uhura being a black female and one of the main characters in Star Trek.
In the 60s now.
In the 60s, in that it was a big deal, but as far as the show is concerned, it wasn't.
Yeah.
The show treated it as if it was a show coming out today. Like, yeah, it was a black woman, whatever.
Well, it wasn't just that. You had a Russian.
Right.
At a time when we were in the Cold War with the Russians.
A Japanese.
Well, Oriental.
Oriental. He was Japanese specifically because
he was because
he was in the Japanese internment camps.
And then you had a Scottishman. And then you had Spock, who's also another form of alien.
And so it did it super well because it was subtle but not. And it speaks a lot to me, and I thought it was really important, and I thought it was really well done, and I loved it, and it was done better than it is in a lot of other forms of media. So I loved that, and I'm really happy with how that turned out. And I'm just going to move on, because I can go on about Voltron for a while, and I kind of did last time.
It's a good cartoon.
But I'm a little burnt out because I talked about it already. Stupid camera. Let me make sure it's still on. Yeah, we're good. We're still rolling.
My number 4 was Batman the Animated Series.
Oh, we didn't get to this. This is new information.
Batman the Animated Series. I think this is the definitive version of Batman. I love the noir style. I think you enjoy that. The noir style of Batman. That kind of old look to it. Batman's weird because you can never quite tell when it takes place. Sometimes you're like, this takes place in the 30s. No, wait, they've got phones. Like high-tech phones. But the cars, the Tommy guns are like 20s, 30s vibe. But then there's other things with computers where it's like an 80s, 90s vibe. It's like I never really pinpoint the time. The episodes are great and groundbreaking for a kid's cartoon. Heart of Ice with Mr. Freeze. That's such an highly acclaimed episode. It deserves every award it's gotten. And it takes a character that's very campy before that and makes him a very relatable character, and you understand the motivations for why he's doing what he's doing. He was cheated, he was wronged, but like me in Overwatch. And he wants revenge on the people who did it, a lot like me in Overwatch.
Getting angsty now, my man.
And well, Eric knows how it is when you're a Bastion and you're doing all the work and nobody's helping you.
Yes, very much.
He loves Bastion. Yeah, he gets a little frustrating. And then it really does have the definitive version of a lot of the characters. That Two-Face. It doesn't just introduce you to Two-Face. There are several episodes with Harvey Dent. We get attached to Harvey Dent. We see Pamela Isley try to kill Harvey Dent. We get that him and Bruce have this friendship. Then we actually see him become Two-Face. We see the tragedy of that. And we see the fallout from that where he becomes Two-Face. And that is an excellent performance of Two-Face. I forget who does Two-Face. That's an
Robert Mole.
Was it?
Yes.
Right, Bull, Night Court.
Correct.
And he does, man, there's some great voice actors on that. Yeah, Robert Mole.
No, not Robert, Richard Mole.
Richard Mole, yes. Because I love Night Court, I should know that. I love Roddy McDowell as the Mad Hatter. I love Roddy McDowell. David Warner. You know, just to name the easy ones. We'll get further along. But I like these little stars that a lot of people might not realize were in the show. I enjoy that. This is the definitive version of Batman for me. Kevin Conroy is Batman. Anytime I'm watching something besides Dark Knight Returns, because Peter Weller is a perfect older Batman, period. But anything else, when I'm watching a younger Batman, if it's not Kevin Conroy, I'm always slightly disappointed. I love Kevin Conroy's Batman. I love when they got him back for the Killing Joke.
Video games.
I was just about to say the Arkham games. I love the fact they got him for 3 of the 4 Arkham games. And I think it's defining. I love the fact that Kevin Conroy voices Batman and Bruce Wayne slightly different. Like, he gets the fact that Batman is the real character and Bruce Wayne is the persona. A lot like Michael Keaton.
Yes.
And then, of course, I've got to talk about Mark Hamill's Joker. The best Joker ever. I love his Joker. He melds the more extreme, dangerous sides with the comical sides perfectly. This is the Joker who's... You never quite know how he's going to react to something. He might react with a joke, or he might kill you. You don't know.
Which is so Joker.
It is. And Mark Hamill's voice is perfect. Again, anytime it's not Mark Hamill voicing the Joker, I'm always a little disappointed. Because I love Mark Hamill's Joker. I honestly think of Mark Hamill, secondly, as Luke Skywalker, firstly, as the Joker. That's how much his Joker means to me. And the way he's drawn, the way he acts, a lot of his episodes in the original animated series and the new animated series, Mad Love is an amazing episode. And we really get to see the tragedy of Harley Quinn Although there's some humorous part in that episode too, where when she first calls him to tell him, he's like, Batman, yeah. Wait, you have what? Where? And then it cuts to the scene of the car, and you see the car ramping over the
also,
thing.
can we talk about the fact that that episode does something that you would not get away with today, where she's straight up in like
you want to come up and rev your Harley?
Yeah, she like gets all up in super like kind of skimpy pajamas and is like,
you want to rev it, ride your Harley and rev up your Harley? Vroom, vroom. Yeah, oh yeah, that got past the scene.
Like, holy cow, she's straight up just
she's
like
covered in
me.
a pie, and it's like a creamy pie. Oh, come on. You can put that, come on.
That's right after that bit.
Yes, and I'm like, they got away with that. And then
you rev up your Harley and give her a cream pie.
And I love when the Joker first walks in. He's like, Harley, and he goes up to Batman, who's chained up. And he's like, I'll be just a minute. And so it's a serious moment, but there's still humor mixed in. It does a perfect balance of that. And then even moving into him and Batman Beyond, when the Return of the Joker, we find out just how twisted he can be, and how far he'll go. You know what he does to Tim Drake.
Really liked that one.
Yeah, I mean he's maniacal. And I really loved in Mask of the Phantasm when the guy Abe Vigoda played, the old gangster, gets a little frustrated with him, grabs his shoulder, and he's like, "Don't touch me, old man. I don't know where you've been." And you get that he wasn't faking it for half a second. He's about to kill the guy, and then he switched to his comedy mode. While secretly afterwards he's like, "That's right, a nice big smile," and we know later he killed the guy. And that's Mark Hamill's Joker. That's why it's perfect. Batman the Animated Series has been hailed as the greatest cartoon ever. I can see why. It has such a good cast of characters, such good writing, such good voice acting. The definitive version of Batman, in my opinion.
Number 4 for me has been a bit of a toss-up, but I have to agree with him. It's got to be Batman Animated Series. Like I said.
Good soundtrack.
Very good.
Oh my gosh.
Shirley Walker's that one theme, not the Danny Elfman thing from the opening credits, but you know that other main theme, dun 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 dun. Yeah, that's Shirley Walker. Yeah, that is. I love that thing. That's it. It's got a good
almost
soundtrack.
more than the Danny Elfman thing.
I do.
You just play those 3 notes, and I'm just like Batman.
Yep.
I could be out in a Walmart looking at which milk to buy, and I would hear that, and I'd be like, Batman.
As I was saying before I was so really interrupted.
Oh my god.
We all like Batman.
Yes, we do.
Get over it, big boy.
Yeah, but y'all take so long. Anyway, I'll say it. Like I said, Kevin Conroy is Batman. The voice, the way he sounds. I mean, it's uncut. I mean, it's great. Mark Hamill. Oh my God, Mark Hamill as the Joker. He is the only. He's the Joker. Voice wise, fantastic. And all. All these different villains that you see: Two-Face, Penguin, Clayface.
I didn't even touch on Clayface. Great Clayface.
Mr. Freeze. Yeah, Mr. Freeze. Killer Croc.
Ra's al Ghul.
Ra's al Ghul. My favorite villain. My favorite villain is the Riddler. I love Riddler. I love Riddler in pretty much every episode that he did.
I'm trying to remember who voiced Riddler. I think that's somebody else that it's a name we would recognize. I don't remember who it is.
You guys continue doing your thing. I'll go real quick.
Well, yeah, maybe sure, but like I love the way they portray Alfred. I mean, the guy who did Alfred, he was great, and the way they did Robin, that was pretty good. And then of course, down for the New Avengers. It was okay. I mean, New Avengers. I mean,
Scarecrow.
I was getting to that.
Sorry.
Getting that. The New Avengers. It was okay. Only problem is I really didn't like the way his backsuit looked, because I prefer the original one.
John Glover.
John Glover. We know John Glover.
Yes.
Lionel Luthor.
Yeah.
Smallville. Yeah, and he played in Gremlins too.
Yeah.
Payback. He's in Payback.
And
Oh Jesus, he's got a huge.
And like I love both the way the Batmobiles look. I mean they look great, but as you said, the Scarecrow, oh my God, he scares me. The New Avengers Scarecrow scares me, and the guy who voiced him, that chilling voice, what's his name?
I can't remember who voiced Scarecrow. Look that up. He's another one we're gonna recognize and feel stupid we don't know.
He also voiced Brainiac in Justice 2. And if I'm
Jeffrey Combs.
Yeah, Jeffrey Combs. Yeah, Jeffrey
I
Combs.
love Jeffrey Combs. He's in Star Trek Deep Space
I
Nine
mean, I was in the middle looking
and Reanimator.
Yeah, but like that's my number 4.
Oh, I do want to point out one very special episode of the animated series, and I love what they did. It's the Grey Ghost episode.
Yes.
I love the Grey Ghost episode because they did one amazing thing. They cast the one perfect actor they could cast to voice the Grey Ghost, and that was the amazing Adam West.
The late great Adam West.
And I think that
I love that episode.
was such a
That's one of my
beautiful
favorite
thing.
episodes.
It is, and I think that was an amazing tribute.
The Grey
An
Ghost.
amazing thing they did that they got Adam West in there to voice that character that meant so much to Bruce in that universe, and I was really, really touched that they did that. I just wanted to mention that real quick.
One thing, my favorite episode of the entire series has to be The Forgotten. I love that soundtrack.
I forgot which episode is that? The one where he loses his memory?
Yes,
Yeah, I like that one. That's a good one.
I love that soundtrack.
And let's real quick. That is where Harley Quinn got introduced. Harley Quinn never existed until that cartoon. She wasn't in the comics.
Oh yeah.
She actually made her
And that's
debut
where
in that show.
I think we touched on it earlier, but that's also where Mr. Freeze got his.
it
was
did.
it there or was it the?
No, it's there.
No, it was there. Yeah,
He
and
was
the Joel
always-
Schumacher movie copied it.
Well, let's not go there. That's insulting.
Yeah, great.
But he was always a very campy, silly,
Yeah.
goofy character that they made into a very tragic figure in that. Yes.
Number 3.
3?
Might surprise one of you two or both of you. Transformers is going to be my number 3.
G1?
Yes, the G1 cartoon. Now, this one is almost interchangeable with number 1. Number 2 is concrete where it is, but this one and number 1 can kind of switch places. The only reason this one doesn't...
You were flip-flopping them before we started the video.
I was. I had this on number 1 up until almost right before the video, and then I flip-flopped it. I'll clarify real quick why it's not number 1 for me, and then I'll just blow all over G1.
It's gonna be a while.
It has some weak episodes. It has some weaker moments. At the end of the day, as amazing as it is, it does suffer from the fact that it is an 80s cartoon meant to sell toys. That said, first of all, it's the creation of these characters, and even when it is campy and silly, 9 times out of 10, it is still a blast to watch.
Let's
it's
acknowledge
so much
that
fun.
later iterations of these characters, a lot of times, are based off.
All of my favorite incarnations of these characters
Based off
is
their
based
G1.
off elements. The IDW
Elements.
Thundercracker.
Yeah.
I love him because he ends up becoming a good guy by the end of the universe because of some gray elements, and there's elements that you can kind of see where they got that from the G1 cartoon, where he's not necessarily
He
a
wasn't
good
nearly
guy,
as loyal
but
as the others.
he's not loyal, and not in the like backstabbing Starscream way, but in kind of the like I guess I'm just along for the ride, but I don't really care way. And Starscream, gosh, Starscream in the G1 cartoon, constantly bickering, trying to overthrow Megatron. It's my favorite. The 2 versions of he's my 3rd favorite Starscream, and the 2 versions I love more because they just do the same thing G1 did, but in a more mature, therefore more competent light.
Oh, yeah, they make him. He's not just blatantly backstabbing. He's got a little more cunning involved.
But it's still that Megatron. I mean, Megatron. Is perfect. Optimus Prime is amazing in the show. Bumblebee's great. Ironhide. Who doesn't love Ironhide?
A lot of the characters still have core traits. Jazz. Bumblebee, Ironhide.
Wheeljack is my favorite Transformer of all time.
I mean, even Prowl's not featured much, my favorite Transformer. But he still has these core traits, the logic, not cold logic, but the very logic-mindedness that still exists in his character today. It's been fleshed out a lot more, in some good ways and some bad ways. But the core thing about Prowl, even though he's not in G1 much, as popular as a character as he is in the Transformers canon, he really wasn't in G1 a lot.
Wheeljack, I love Wheeljack. I really love. He's a mad scientist, and I love that. I love mad scientists, man. He's also I love it because like Wheeljack is the mad scientist who will like build a weapon on improv and then try it and then not work it. There is straight up an episode of G1 where he like grabs a rocket launcher he's been trying to make and he fires it at a Decepticon and it just blows up. Doesn't even hit the bad guy. It just blows up on him. He's like, oh, well. It reminds me a lot of Howard Stark in Captain America: First Avenger when they're experimenting on the Tesseract stuff and it like explodes and he's like, "Somebody write that down." Wheeljack's that kind of guy. That's why he's my favorite character. He also created the Dinobots. That's another moment. I love in SOS Dinobots, I think it's the first one where they show up. Or the first Dinobot episode, when like he creates them and Prime's like, "Yeah, shut this down." And then they do. And then all the Autobots get captured at the end, and he's like, "What are we gonna do?" And Wheeljack's like, "So you know that project Optimus said to shut down and to completely abandon? Well, I've been working on it, and I think it's gonna work this time." That's Wheeljack.
Wheeljack.
There's this moment in the IDW comics where he says, I won't get into details because to explain the story, we'll be here for another 5 minutes. But basically, he's trying to give Bumblebee a hint for something. He's like, "It's the 3 most important words in the Cybertronian language," and the passcode is just his name 3 times. And that sums up Wheeljack to a T.
I think you were supposed to be talking about the G1 cartoon, not just about Wheeljack.
I know. I'm sorry.
Wheeljack is not the whole G1 cartoon.
No, sound waves, everything. The point I'm trying to get at, though, is that while it's not my favorite incarnation, my favorite incarnation is IDW. But my favorite thing about the franchise and my favorite characters and my favorite things about those characters exists because of G1. And when G1 is good, G1's amazing. Golden Lagoon.
I love Golden Lagoon.
Actually, you know what? I won't say too much on it.
But it's moving.
Just because I know you probably have a lot you're going to say about it later. The 2-parter with the Key to Vector Sigma introducing the aerial bots. Another storyline I really love Silverbolt's character. Well, that was really cool.
When he was learning
War Dawn.
War Dawn's
That's my favorite.
That's amazing.
That is his favorite G1 episode. He loves that one.
I love the Bruticus, which is basically like a 3-parter.
I like that. We actually got
Ranger
backstory
Bruticus,
on
Star
that.
Trek Brigade,
and then the Cybertron episode.
We get
that.
that.
Anyway,
But we actually have a history on those. They were
Yeah.
actually, put in that little prison because they weren't reliable.
And then the Constructicons.
They're tragic characters.
Gosh, I wish more.
Omega Supreme.
That is Omega Supreme.
Tragic
I love Omega Supreme. That's something I wish more incarnations would play with. Like no one since G1 has really played with the fact that the Constructicons are painfully tragic characters because they were genuinely noble good guys who got permanently altered. And no continuity is played with that in a way as well as G1 did. Again, G1 was one of those shows where they pumped out so many episodes, but when G1 was good, G1 was powerful. And then the 86 movie has its faults, but it's a lot of fun. And that fight scene between Optimus and Megatron.
Number 1 Transformer moment ever.
Oh, it's amazing. I would have waited an eternity for this. It's over, Prime. Never. Like, I love that. It's also a beautiful movie. Like it's
really it's really well animated. It's easily the best animated part of the G1.
I love Hot Rod and Cup in it. I love Hot Rod and Cup.
I love their dynamic. Dynamic.
Look, I have said for years now, and they both have heard me say it a million times. I don't care if it's a cartoon or a comic book or whatever, I want a buddy cop story with Hot Rod and Cup.
You got the old gruff cop with the young hotshot rookie.
It's great.
It is perfect. I would watch that. I want to see a webisode video where people do that.
That would be awesome. And Rod
we should do an audio of that. We should write an audio of that and do it.
I mean, do like a stop motion of it? That would be fun. I don't know if we could do the stop motion part. That's hard, but
Yeah,
at least
hard.
do like
We
a
could do
little
like an audio
drama.
drama and put it on YouTube. We should do that.
Shoot, yeah, I'll have to work on that. Side note, side project aside. I also really...
You're being very brave, Eric.
I really love, and Eric's about to get a little mad over there. I really enjoy season 3. It's not my favorite season, but season 3 has...
Who has that amazing leader?
No, you know what? Rodimus Prime is a great leader.
He is a great leader.
And he's a great complex character.
He is.
Because you know what?
He has flaws.
I love
He's
Optimus
a flawed
Prime.
character.
But the G1 cartoon is not my favorite incarnation of Prime. We'll get to that more later. But he's great, and he's noble, and he's heroic, and he's amazing, and he was a childhood hero of mine, and he means a like I cannot overstate how much the G1 cartoon incarnation of Optimus Prime means to me. Rodimus Prime's he's a very human character. He feels like a failure, and he's an amazing leader. He leads Cybertron in a time of peace. And he does a great job at it.
The Burden Hardest to Bear is a good episode.
Yeah, and he
powerful episode.
But he never lives up to Prime in his own eyes, which is so. And they
Very
can play
humble.
with that. Ultra Magnus, I think, if I remember correctly, has an episode, has a moment where he kind of mentions to Rodimus. He's like, Rodimus, you're good. Like, you're good at your job. I love Rodimus as a leader. I think he's a really compelling. And I promise I'm not just saying this to try and enrage you. I think he's a really
Not completely.
No, it's fake. You're taking too long.
He's a really interesting, compelling character.
Yeah, Eric's being very brave over here.
And then the last thing I'll mention that I like about season 3 is it takes a very different direction. I really like how it goes from like an all-out war to like the elite elite special ops team dealing with a terrorist group. Because I love how that's what the Decepticons come. They go from this like warmongering group that's going to take over the universe to like, it's just a terrorist group that occasionally fails at screwing stuff up. Speaking of terrorist group, I love that little Easter egg in season 3.
Old Snake.
You can at least acknowledge that's cool, man.
You got at least
Cobra!
like that one episode. I'm sure you like at least that one episode for the G.I. Joe reference.
I'll end it on that Cobra call. I love G1.
Hey, it gives us more Chris Latta in season 3. I'm a happy guy because I love me some Chris Latta.
The Ghost of Starscream!
I'm going to go ahead. And my third one, we're really taking a different turn here. My third one is one that hasn't been mentioned. It's a cartoon that I loved as a kid and that I need to get on DVD. I don't have it on DVD. It's something I just keep putting off. I need to get on DVD. And it's actually a cartoon that my mother was actually a huge fan of, or is a huge fan of. My
I think I know what this is.
Oh, no, I know what it is.
And they still do cartoons of it. I don't really watch the newer ones. Follow me. But the old ones. And it had amazing cast. You were just talking about a cartoon that had Frank Welker in it. I am also talking about a cartoon that had Frank Welker in it. And it also had a radio host by the name of Casey Kasem. And I'm talking about Scooby-Doo.
Oh!
You lost me
I should
now.
have seen this. He mentioned that Scooby-Doo ranked high for him.
Yeah,
How did I not see that coming?
I love the old
Oh
Scooby-Doo
my God.
cartoons.
Right back on
The
this.
ones from the 60s and the 70s, even into the 80s. The old Scooby-Doo Where Are Yous are easily the best ones, the originals. I love those. They're well written. Another amazing intro to the old ones. I also love the intro to most of the ones from the 60s and 70s, like the New Adventures of Scooby-Doo when they always had the guest stars, like the Harlem Globetrotters, the Three Stooges, Don Adams, Don Knotts, Jonathan Winters, Batman and Robin. I really like the intro from those. I like the intro from the ones they did later when it shows the shark biting when he's jet skiing and it's biting the board. I really like that one. I love the intro from the 13th Ghost of Scooby-Doo's, which also had Vincent Price in it. I love Vincent Price. I'm a huge fan of Vincent Price. So I love they had Vincent Price in it. I love Scooby-Doo. That is something that I loved as a kid. It's something my mother and I watched together. She loves Scooby-Doo. We're huge Scooby-Doo fans. I don't know, they're just always fun to watch. It's one of those I can go back and watch now. It's not like some of the others where I loved them as a kid and I might go back and watch them every now and then. It's something I can still go back and enjoy. I don't watch the newer ones as much. I probably need to. Everybody tells me Mystery Inc. was pretty good. I've never watched it. But I love the 60s, 70s, and 80s ones. Those were really big. And I actually saw a picture on Facebook the other day I loved. It was a picture of cosplay groups. And they were parked at a gas station. And at the first pump was the Scooby-Doo Mystery Machine, and at the second pump was an Ecto-1, and the caption underneath it was, "Man, how bad does it have to be on a night for both of these things?" And then somebody under it put, "Well, if it's a real ghost, it goes to the Ghostbusters. If it's just Old Man Jenkins in a mask, it goes to the Scooby-Doo crew. And that gave me a good chuckle.
Which I guess means they had both.
It goes to those pesky kids and their dog too. I love Scooby. I love Scooby-Doo. He's had some odd crossovers in later years, like with wrestling and all that. I don't get all that, but the old ones were great. I've never been quite as happy since the guy who originally voiced Scooby-Doo is also the guy who voiced Papa Smurf. He's passed away now. I forget his name, and I think Frank actually voices him now. As much as I love Frank, he doesn't nail Scooby-Doo perfectly for me. But yeah, I love Scooby-Doo. He's always got a. I literally I had 2 dogs when I was growing up. One was named Fred after a Ray Stevens song, and the other one's name was Scooby-Doo. Although we just called him Scooby after Scooby-Doo.
Number 3, I'm gonna make this short and sweet. Number 3 is Thundercats, the original 1980s Thundercats.
I assume it's
Surprise! But anyway, the reason I like Thundercats is because the intro is great. I loved it.
Oh yeah, the animation.
I know that's He-Man. I was just screwing with you guys. I know that's.
Get out! All right, off the couch.
Yep.
Off the couch, behind the couch. You're behind the couch.
But anyway, I love Thundercats because I grew up watching Thundercats, and maybe because I love Lion-O as the leader. I mean, the Sword of Omens is a great weapon, but he's not my favorite character. My favorite character has to be Panther.
Yeah.
Because Panther.
I said Puma. That's not a character. I'm sorry.
There's a Pumara.
I meant the Panther there.
But I love Panther because he's like the strongest of the Thundercats. He pretty much builds all the Thundercats arsenal, which is the Thunder Tank. I love the Thunder Tank, and he has nunchucks, everything like that. And when I was little, when I first saw Mum-Ra, he was scary. I mean, he was really scary, especially with that voice when he transformed.
Yeah, somebody actually did a GIF of that one time. It showed Mum-Ra's transformation, and underneath it goes, "Yeah, this was a kid's cartoon."
Mm-hmm. Now, don't get me wrong. I do like the 2011 version of Thundercats, but to me...
I need to watch that.
And of course, the 2019 version of Thundercats. I'm sorry, Eric.
Why'd you have to go there?
I just wanted to upset you.
Well, congratulations, you did. But
Thank you.
Oh, shut up.
Roar.
But anyway...
I'm sorry, I shouldn't be laughing that hard.
But anyway...
That wasn't funny.
No, it was not funny at all. But anyway, don't get me wrong. The 2011 version of Thundercats, it was good. It was good, but the problem is it didn't last very long.
Yeah, the toy line sucked.
Yes, the 12 very long sucked, but the 1985 takes out the park any day. That was my number 3. Number 2.
All right, now this is definitely
Be more like Eric. His was good.
This is definitely a surprise to these two, or maybe not. My number 2 is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, in particular the 2012 Nicktoons cartoon.
Again, this is part of the generation gap. We're more of the '87 fans where we grew up. This one, but that one's more toward his age.
More of the millennial ones.
Before I go into what I love about this, I should say they mentioned the age thing. That's a fair point to make because this is the cartoon that made me fall in love with Ninja Turtles. Ninja Turtles is my second favorite cartoon franchise, right behind Transformers, and this is the reason that is. I honestly, fun fact, only even decided to watch Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles because the girl I was dating at the time really loved the cartoon, and it was still at that stage in the relationship where whenever your significant other says they like something, you try and get into it too because you want to impress them. Whereas, so it wasn't a year in where they're just oh, I really like this, and you're cool. Okay. I really love this makeup channel, and you're
that means I gotta watch it.
It was still at the stage where I gave it a chance, and I fell in love with it. It has its campy moments, sure. Even in the most recent season, the final season, it still has moments where it gets silly and goofy, and then it also has moments where characters get murdered. And where stuff gets serious and dark and gritty, but it never feels like grim dark. It feels so natural and brutal, and these characters grow so much. Donatello is my favorite in this. What a surprise! After my Wheeljack obsession. I love Donatello, but not a Donatello thing, Ninja Turtle thing. I love the way they handle the turtles. I love Splinter in this one.
Don is your favorite, right?
Yeah, Donatello.
Who's your favorite?
Don.
Don? I'm a Raph man. He's a smart
I like
aleck. That's
Raph.
me.
Raph is my second favorite in that show.
I'm a smart aleck. He's a smart aleck. I love Raph. I just wanted to get all of our
No.
favorites.
That's a good thing to be said. I love Donatello, but I don't want to go too much on that. I love the way Leo's done in this. Again, they do a good job at making Leo the leader who is he's a very real leader. Like, he has his moments and he also has his shortcomings. And then I love Raph. They do a good job at showing him as angry. And I like Michelangelo because they give Michelangelo moments. And I think it's really easy for Ninja Turtle cartoons to just kind of purely use Michelangelo as comic relief.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of did that with Mikey, but they went a step further in this one. And I know the 2003 show did something similar. They made Mikey the character that was like kind of the heart of the group, which I think is in every best incarnation of Ninja Turtles is when Mikey's at his best. Is because things can get really dark for the Turtles, and then they can get really grim.
He's always the optimist.
And Mikey, I think Mikey's
always
at
the
its
optimist.
best when his character role is to be the one who they can be like what happens once in the show,
Even
kicked
in
out
the
of New
original
York
series,
City
it's like that.
and stuck on a farm, and Mikey's still like, yeah, but we got it, guys. I love April in this. I know some people had a problem with the way they did April in it. I love April. She is... I'm trying to not curse. She is a really impressive individual, which it's really hard to find a PG version of bad something. You know what I'm saying?
Of what?
Of bad.
She's tough.
Yeah, tough.
Like a
powerful.
tomboy.
Yeah, but not. And I love her. Of course, I have a thing for tomboys, so I guess fair enough. I like girls for a little more giving. Oof. But that's a tangent. I'm sorry.
Keep you away from boys named Tom. I got it.
I love April O'Neil in that show. And the only character, I love how they did Shredder and Karai, and I could go on and on about how that show delivers the best incarnations of all those characters. And
Yeah, I really want to watch it for the Bebop and the Rocksteady.
oh my gosh.
Really.
They
I haven't watched the 2012
They
series.
do Bebop
I
and
want to. I
Rocksteady,
just
and they
haven't.
do them a million times better than the 80s cartoon because Rocksteady is one of my favorite stereotypes ever of Mother Russia. He talks like big drunk Russian, and I love it.
Yeah, I just wish they put it on Netflix so I could watch it.
It's if I'm gonna buy this whole show soon. When I do, you can just borrow it.
I've been wanting to watch it.
It's amazing, and I could go on forever, but I won't. The one complaint I have about the show, Casey Jones, and it's not really a complaint, because they make Casey and April teenagers in the show, and with April it works. She's a lot like the April O'Neil you know, just now a teenager. With Casey, it works, but it also doesn't. Casey Jones in the show is exactly what I think Casey was back when he was in high school. The problem is mid-20s Casey Jones is way more interesting of a character and way more mature than high school Casey. It works, because when I look at Casey in the movies and
My favorite version of Casey.
and in all the comics, I definitely get the vibe that when Casey was a teenager, he was kind of like a whatever punk kid. But I don't like whatever punk kid Casey. He's annoying, and that's like almost all he is in the Nicktoons cartoon. But that is like one small blemish in what is a masterpiece of a show. And even when that show does filler nonsense episodes, they're still amazing and fun. I mean, my closet, when you open it, I've just got a bookshelf that's nothing but Ninja Turtle figures and the Technodrome, and I have a turtle blimp hanging over my TV. So, I really love Ninja Turtles. And on that note, Lee's number 2, so I don't go on for
My number 1 and 2 are neck and neck. They were flip-flopping on this list, and as we were writing this list, they were going back and forth, because they're both a huge part of my childhood, and they both mean a lot to me today. I'm a huge collector. I collect figures of both. they're both probably my two favorite cartoons of the 80s and my two favorite cartoons overall. And I love them. They both include childhood heroes of mine. And it was really hard. It basically boiled down to which one have I been watching more lately. And one of them I love, but I haven't actually sat down and watched an episode of in at least a couple years, whereas the other one I was watching episodes of earlier this year. And they both can have sillier filler episodes, but they both can have actually very powerful moments, especially when you're considering that I was only 4 or 5 when they came out, 3 or 4 when they came out. So number 2 on my list is G1 Transformers.
Really?
Yes, and I'm telling you, I was going back and forth on these because they're
surprised.
Then I know what your number 1 is.
We'll get there. I love the G1 Transformers. I know that it was very much a time where the good guys were the good guys and the bad guys were the bad guys, and that's how I like my Transformers. Why I'm not as much of an IDW fan, where it's more of a gray area.
Which I'll give you. That's what I love about IDW, is that it's a more mature gray area.
But I liked growing up having
that's definitely what it is.
Whereas the IDW characters are more flawed, more realistic. You had these very idealistic characters.
Well, it also really embraces the idea of a gritty war, whereas the cartoon really kind of goes.
It kind of skipped over that. I love that version of Optimus Prime because he is very much a role model you can look up to. This is someone your child can see in the G1 cartoon, and this is who you want to be. He's a leader. He's heroic. He's always going to do what's right. He's going to fight for his people. He's never going to abandon anyone. He's going to fight to save these humans who he doesn't even know. Just met. He does that in one of the first couple episodes of the show when he saves Spike and Sparkplug.
The very first episode.
And Peter Cullen voices him so well. And as much as I don't like the live-action movies, when they got Peter Cullen to voice him, it made my day. And that was one thing Michael Bay actually did right. I love the G1 cartoon. The animation is hit or miss because they had different studios doing it. So some of the episodes look and some of the episodes hold up pretty well, better than its contemporaries of the time. The actual animated movies animation is fantastic and is easily the best example of Generation 1. And they've remastered it. They put it on Blu-ray. It looks great. And while there are and we're talking about a TV show that had 98 episodes over a 3-year period because it really was something originally made to sell toys. And it had to churn out episodes really fast. It had to introduce new characters on a dime. And so to be able to...
For the most part, it did really well.
It did. And
I
a lot of
think Defensor is one of the few times where it dropped the ball.
Well, it still did a good job of giving a lot of the core characters personality traits that are still a part of these characters to this day.
For sure.
As we talked about earlier, Prowl is still Prowl, even though he didn't get as much fleshing out in
Hound
G1.
is still Hound if you don't count the garbage.
Bumblebee is still Bumblebee. Mirage is still Mirage. Wheeljack is still Wheeljack. Prime is still Prime.
Even in IDW, he has his flaws, but he's still the guy who's going to jump in front of a complete strange human that he's never met before.
Exactly. All the other incarnations of Prime are still G1 Prime at their core, just about. All of them have those same moral traits and goodness, for the most part. There may be a little more of a gray area.
Let's not talk about that one.
But for the most
He
part.
doesn't count.
Even the live action one, I haven't watched 5. I refuse to watch 5. But going from the early movies, say the first 3 movies.
5? I thought they ended at none.
Only you would.
There's only one Transformers movie.
They ended at 1, and it was great. Well, it wasn't great, but it was passable. But they got Prime right in it.
Yeah, okay.
They actually did Prime.
They got Prime right in the first one.
First one, I'll give them that. And so
and in the first
he's part of the pop culture lexicon now. People who don't even know Transformers can see a picture of Optimus Prime, know it's Optimus Prime. And so much defining characteristics. I love the voice work. I mean, to be honest, anytime I'm watching something Transformers, be it a video game or what, if it's not the original voice actor doing it, there's always a part of me that's a little disappointed. And I get you can't do someone like Chris Latta has passed away, but I love Chris Latta's Starscream. I thought he nailed the voice of Starscream perfectly. He's this guy who thinks he's more than he is, and instead he whines whenever he loses. And that voice is perfect for that.
I will say, I think other incarnations of Starscream have had an amazing voice, but I think anytime they try and replicate Chris Latta, it never comes out quite right.
It never comes out
like in Transformers Devastation, amazing game. One of my favorite games of all time. And yes, that is like 80% because I'm obsessed with Transformers.
Agreed.
But even in that one, Starscream, there were moments where he sounded really
Yeah,
good.
it would depend on the inflection of the voice and the pitch he was speaking. Sometimes it was pretty close, sometimes it wasn't, depending on what he was saying. Possession was the same, the Beast Wars episode. There are times it sounds right, and other times it doesn't. I've never heard
it
anybody
sounds
just
wrong.
nail
It
It sounds wrong, and it's enough to kind of pull me out of the episode. You know, Frank Welker's Megatron's still my favorite voice for Megatron, and he can still nail that voice pretty well.
He even does well. I don't want to say better now, different. I'll get to that.
Well, even in
I'm jumping the gun.
even in one of the other shows, and I'm sure it's the one you're thinking of because I've seen clips from it. His voice, I can still tell that's Frank Welker's Megatron because it's still similar in some ways to me.
Dude, I'm having to bite my tongue to not skip ahead to my turn again.
And I love the fact that now, after all these years, they're bringing these actors back to voice these characters again in the video games like Devastation or Peter Cullen in the Cybertron games. But here's the thing: a lot of people don't get. They're always, it was just children's cartoons. These moments had impact. He talked earlier about the Golden Lagoon. That was a message that some people get very heavy-handed with, of kind of the side effects of war, the tragedy of war. And one of the characters, like Beachcombers, I don't know if I'll say he's a pacifist, but he really doesn't like war.
Dude, he's a super hippy-dippy.
Yeah.
Both of the Masterpiece Beachcombers have had animals as accessories.
But he doesn't like fighting, and the end of the episode, I won't go into it, but the end of the episode is really tragic in a way when you look at it.
It's a beautiful shot.
It is. It's a wonderful shot, and it only involves him speaking 2 words, but it's a wonderful. There's a reason why the ending is one of the reasons why it's one of my favorite episodes.
Oh, it's beautifully delivered.
It's
we
wonderful.
won.
Yeah, just the way he says the lines, "We won."
Speaking of which,
And he's very depressed and he's very sad. It's a beautiful ending. If you like Transformers, you should watch the G1 Golden Lagoon episode. They're not all silly. That one has a very powerful message, and I think it was executed perfectly. It was written perfectly. It was directed perfectly, and it was voiced perfectly.
super quick side tangent. You mentioned voice acting. Voice acting in the G1 cartoon was overall way better than a lot of cartoons.
It was,
Wally Burr
especially
the,
for its contemporaries, for its time.
Wally Burr was the voice director, and it's funny if you look at interviews, he is infamous among the cast. They would say that like he was great, but the reason the voice acting on that show is amazing is he had no problem being like, all right, we take number 30. Like he would. We're still going. He was infamous for making him do another take and another take. Fun fact, and then I will stop. One of the reasons Optimus Prime is one of the reasons he's so soothed is because Peter Cullen was always like, his brother who was in Vietnam told him that, remember, he doesn't make him a hero that knows he doesn't have to be gruff to be strong. Another reason is in the early episodes, Prime, when he would scream, he would have a guttural scream. In the later episodes, he never really screamed. He just would talk very loudly. Part of that is because Peter Cullen also had to do a lot of the little changeovers between shows for NBC. And he would, and Burr would make
Everyone's hurting his voice.
Burr would make Cullen get to the point to where he was spitting blood out when he was screaming. Yeah. And so he would just tell him at the beginning of some sessions, now Burr, I have to go to NBC later today. I can't be screaming today. I can't do it or I won't be able to go to my other job, Burr. So that got to the... I just think that's a fun little tidbit. Alright, I'm sorry.
And there's other powerful episodes. War Dawn is a good one. It's very powerful. Even the early episodes, because they're leaving the planet because its resources are exhausted. I mean, they don't have a choice. The animated movie is powerful. The death of Optimus Prime is a powerful moment, not only in the franchise, but in cinema.
That is one of those songs that it pops up and you're just like...
when Watch Mojo did their top 10 robot deaths in movies, naturally that one's on there.
It was number 1, right?
The Iron Giant was number 1.
Whoa!
No, I agree with that. I mean, I'm not an Iron Giant fan, but I can see why it was. That was a popular movie. Yeah. The T-800 from Terminator was on there.
Yes, it was.
Which it should have been. But Optimus Prime was on there. And that is an iconic moment. That's a moment that hurt the franchise. It's powerful, but it's what bombed the movie.
Then it started a trend of Prime dying a lot and coming back a lot.
And he was such a powerful character, they had to bring him back. The kids were upset. Kids were crying. Kids were leaving the theater. Hasbro was getting angry messages. but it was the way that scene is written when he dies is very, very powerful, very heartbreaking. I mean, when Daniel is crying on his hands when he dies, you know, that's a blank slate for us, the viewers. As, you know, us kids who were upset that one of our childhood heroes is dying. And for someone that's 4 or 5...
And he handles it with such grace, too. Do not grieve.
Well, you know, and for, you know, someone that's 3, 4, 5, 6, and then you're really kind of learning the concept of death.
I know a lot of
that's a
people
harsh
around
teacher.
your age who I know who are Transformers fans who have said that, like, that's where they first kind of got the concept of death was Prime.
I don't think mine was that, but it was the first time I understood the meter readings, the screen that goes like this for like a heartbeat, and when it flatlines. That was the first time I learned what that was that scene. I never understood the music that was touching. So, yeah, it was hard. And then keeping in mind that right before that, we'd seen a bunch of the other Transformer Autobots get killed. You know, main ones, Prowl, Ratchet, Brawn, Ironhide, Wheeljack.
Well, we didn't see Wheeljack get killed.
But we know he died, and like Prowl's death is extremely graphic.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a close-up of his face, with gas coming out of it, and everything like that. Come on, Eric. Work through it, Eric. We're getting there.
We got 2 left.
It was graphic, and it's a good cartoon. It's one that I can go back to time and time and again, and it has not only one but 2 of my childhood heroes in it. And Eric, what is your number 2? Or yes, your number 2.
My number 2 is probably going to surprise to you. My number 2 is the 1994 Spider-Man anime series.
Okay, did I miss
good
when you
choice.
said Transformers? Or that's just not on your list.
That's probably his number 1. We'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there. But
The 90s Spider-Man is
The 90s?
is highly regarded for a reason. And that intro.
That's not your number 1, is it?
We'll get there.
we'll get there. Jeez. Keep interrupting me. God, wait. But
Sorry.
well, obviously. But anyway, the reason I like the Spider-Man cartoon series because you actually see Peter Parker struggling with the conflict of being a college student and being a Spider-Man.
Peter Parker has a hard life.
Yes, yes, it does.
So
And-
far, not one.
And this is
Sorry.
and this actually this is actually the cartoon they actually see all of Spider-Man's enemies, from Kingpin to Hobgoblin. I love Hobgoblin's got to be my favorite villain because it is voiced once again by Mark Hamill. He does a great job.
Excellent at it.
Got Kingpin, Hobgoblin, Green Goblin, Venom, Carnage, Scorpion, Chameleon, and tons of them. And you also get to see me and Spider-Man's allies, like the Fantastic Four,
X-Men.
you're right.
Iron Man.
X-Men, Iron Man. Yeah, big crossovers. X-Men, X-Men.
And it's actually the X-Men from the X-Men animated series,
That's right.
Iron Man from the Iron Man animated series.
Yes, that's
You
right.
see, you had a Marvel universe even back then, a
Yes.
combined universe even back then.
Which I think is pretty good for me. I really didn't like the series finale.
Oh God, yeah, that's the only thing that ruins it for me. The series, its ending was terrible.
Yeah. But like I said, that's probably my number 2 because it pretty much show like the difficulties Spider-Man has to go through, and we can see all the other different Spider-Man, like for all the rails. But my favorite Spider-Man has to be when he's in the alien costume. I love that. I love that 3-part series.
And I like the guy who voiced him. That's still for me the voice actor I think of when I think
Christopher
of Spider-Man.
Daniel Mars.
Yeah.
Fair
And
enough.
he voiced Spider-Man Noir in Shattered Dimensions.
That is true.
He's the guy I think of when I hear Spider-Man's voice in my
That's
head.
true. That's true. And like I said, that's my favorite Spider-Man, and that's my number 2. If y'all don't mind, I like to go number 1.
Sure.
Okay.
Number 1, this was really tough, but I had come to the conclusion that my number 1 is a tie.
Okay.
It's a tie.
Okay, because I was like, there is no way that is not your number 1. But I was surprised Transformers hadn't shown up yet.
Like I said, my number 1's a tie. It's between Transformers and G.I. Joe. I love both of them
You were
because
confused too, right?
No, I'd actually forgotten about G.I. Joe. I've been awake for 24 hours.
well, like I said, the reason I love
Yeah, G.I. Joe's so forgettable.
the reason yeah, sure. But the reason I like both these cartoons at the same level because they were both made by Sunbow, which made both cartoons.
They shared voice actors.
They also share voice actors, like for instance Michael Bell.
All right.
Will you hush? Stop! Anyway. Can I please finish? I was getting there. Anyway, like I said, some of the voice actors like Michael Bell, he voiced both Proud in Transformers. He also voiced Duke, the first sergeant, which is the leader of G.I. Joe. And Chris Lauder, like he said. He also voiced Cobra Commander, which is probably the best Cobra Commander and was ever known. And he also voiced Starscream.
Best Starscream we've ever known.
That's true. My favorite Transformer has got to be of course Optimus Prime because he is Optimus, and my favorite G.I. Joe is actually Flint, the second commander, the warrant officer.
Second best G.I. Joe, if you ask me.
Yeah, that's your opinion.
I don't know. I mean, I love him. I just love Lady J more.
Because you're
You like tomboys.
Yeah,
I do. I mean,
I like Lady J a lot.
I'm consistent.
She was mine when I was a kid. I liked Lady J.
I really don't have a favorite episode of G.I. Joe, but I probably say my favorite miniseries has to be season 2 of Arise, Serpentor Arise, because you can see more new Joes that show up, like Beachhead, and you even get to see General Hawk, the new leader of G.I. Joe.
I have a question.
Yes.
Was it the actor who voiced Serpentor, is that somebody we know? I don't know why. For some reason that was in my head. It was somebody we know. I don't know if you...
He was someone that was famous like back in the 70s, but I do know that he passed away not too long ago.
I wasn't sure if it was a name. For some reason I was thinking it was a name I'd recognize. I don't know.
I'll look it up.
And then, of course, the villain Serpentor. Now, see, Serpentor...
Richard Gaudier.
Now, see, Serpentor, I really didn't like him. Because I liked the way when Cobra Commander was running Cobra. And then, of course, my favorite episode of Transformers got to be War Down because we had to see how Orion Patrick became Optimus Prime. And plus, the reason I like these two equals one because at the time I did collect both toys at one time. I collected G.I. Joes and I collected Transformers.
Oh, that's cool.
I mean, like I said, I collect both Transformers and G.I. Joes, but I pretty much collected G.I. Joes more than I collect Transformers, and that's the reason I like those two as equal. And that is my number one.
Quick side note, because I was looking it up. He also, Richard Gaudier was Serpentor. He also did Rodimus Prime in season 3 of the cartoon.
That's kind of neat.
Which I guess is kind of funny because you don't like either of those characters. I will say real quick, I like Richard Gaudier way more as Rodimus than I do Judd Nelson. Judd Nelson is a perfect hot rod, but for some reason his Rodimus Prime always feels off to me.
Well, he was only Rodimus for like a couple minutes.
This is fair. And his voice, I think, became so accustomed with the hot rod persona. I will say real quick before I get into my number one. Oh, wait, no. He's going to go first. Yeah. But I want to say while we're on it, because I know he's not going to say anything about G.I. Joe. I do really love G.I. Joe, and it probably would have ranked somewhere
He's just getting started on it.
I'm just starting to get into it just now. I just got past the first big serial of season 1 after the first 2 serials. Really love Lady J. I really like Flint. I really like Shipwreck, and I love Cobra Commander. Those are my top. I got a Lady J and I got a Cobra Commander thanks to this man.
I had a question for you. Yeah. What did you think of the movie?
Which one?
The G.I. Joe movie. Not the live action, the 87 movie.
Honestly, I have issues with that. I really have issues with that.
It got kind of weird with the Cobra Law stuff.
That's the main point.
It's really weird. Yeah, it kind of goes off the rails there.
I will say, regardless, I think we can all agree on one thing.
The opening credits
awesome. The first 5 minutes of that movie.
Actually 3 minutes 37 seconds.
Are some of the most amazing
Reagan era
animated America.
Oh gosh, that's like a Reagan era patriotic advertisement. Join the military right there.
But to answer your question, what I think of the movie, like I said, I got issues with it. I got issues with the movie because of one. I just didn't like the way like the way Cobra Law is. I mean, I just didn't like it. But I did love Burgess Meredith's voice in Galapagos.
He stole my thunder.
Yeah.
I was gonna point. There's one thing I always love about that movie, and it has an actor I absolutely adore in it. I love Burgess Meredith. I do.
I just didn't like the way they treated Cobra Commander because I think they treated him unfairly.
On the bright side, he did get to come back in the sequel series.
The Dick series. The Dick series. Series 2.
Kind of a sequel series.
Yes, it is, but the animation is a lot different.
Yeah.
Touching on Burgess Meredith again.
Yeah,
I like him. I think he's an underutilized actor, and if nothing, that's my favorite part of the movie. And I love Sergeant Slaughter's in it.
That's another thing.
Sergeant
I love
Slaughter.
Sergeant Slaughter.
We do like our Sergeant Slaughter, so we like having him in it. And it had.
I'm like neurotically checking that now.
But
It
that
had Don Johnson in it too.
as Lieutenant Falcon.
Yeah, I do like me some Don Johnson, Miami Vice. But Burgess Meredith, of course, played Mickey in the Rocky movies, played the Penguin in the Batman show, and then he was in a couple really great episodes of The Twilight Zone.
I just really,
I really adore him as an actor.
really love the intro song, in particular the Cobra part. You know.
Cobra.
Well, not just that, although I love that. I also love the just like super evil, like, I'm trying to remember the lyrics. It was like, scream, comes the fearful cry, Cobra, 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 Cobra. Like,
It is.
I could blare that. I will probably blare that in my car on the way home before listening to a podcast.
And of course, my favorite villain, G.I. Joe, it's got to be Destro. I love Destro.
I like me some
Really?
Destro.
Yes.
Okay.
That was my number one.
My number one is Thundercats.
What?
I'm not surprised.
I'm so confuffled. I'm a little surprised this is number one over Transformers, but you did say they were interchangeable.
They are very hard to pick, but I've been watching Thundercats again more lately. Thundercats
But you were
was my favorite. Oh god, the 2011 series was good. My biggest disappointment with it was just that it ended on a cliffhanger and it didn't get to do its full run. But it was nice to see Terry McGinnis back in action as Lionel.
And Larry Kenny.
No, Will Friedle.
Yeah.
That is nice. And then Larry Kinney back as Claudus. That was nice to see. Larry Kinney voiced the original Lionel. So I like the 2011 series. I enjoyed it. The animation was amazing. But the 1985 series is my baby. It was my favorite cartoon as a kid. Period. Lionel is one of my childhood heroes, and the Sword of Omens is my favorite sword of all time, barely beating out Excalibur, which was in an episode of Thundercats.
Yes.
Because I love Excalibur a lot too. I love King Arthur. But the Sword of Omens is my favorite sword of all time. One of the Ultra sabers I own is their Omen, which is their take on the Sword of Omens. It's an amazing sword, and it's probably the reason I love swords as much as I do, even more than lightsabers being responsible for that. Does it have silly episodes? Sure. Is the animation hit or miss depending on the episode? I think the animation is very good for its time. I think it holds up pretty well. It doesn't quite match the animation from the intro all the time, but there are episodes where it does. The intro is also amazing. You've heard people talk about that before, probably. The intro to Thundercats could be my favorite cartoon intro of all time. It's got a really catchy theme. The animation for it is very crisp. It's fantastic. It has quite possibly my favorite villain in animation ever, Mum-Ra. As he pointed out, Mum-Ra is a very scary, creepy villain. Not only for kids, even as adults. Now, in Season 2, he gets a little campier with Mama, and he does have his little campier punchlines, which sometimes make me... But when Mum-Ra's being terrifying, especially in those early episodes, he's terrifying. His introduction is scary. The way you only hear his voice, the way it leads into it's very well done. His voice is creepy and scary. His transformation sequence is creepy and scary. When Watch Mojo did their top 10 list of scariest bad guys in animation, he was like number 2.
Especially like
he was number 2 on
especially like in his introduction when you first hear his voice.
Yeah.
It gives you the creeps.
Yeah, it's creepy too. It's this Langley mummified evil thing who turns into this hulking monster. I mean, he's voiced really well. He's done really well.
And his laugh.
I love the mutants in it. Now, sometimes you can tell in some things when voice actors are doing multiple parts because the ancient spirits of evil sound just like Panthro. I hate to say it, but they do. And Monkian and Tigra sound very similar. But where Jackalman and Lion-O, even though they're both Larry Kinney, sound totally different. I didn't know that until I found that out. But some of the episodes get very heavy. If you watch the very first episode of the cartoon, you literally see genocide.
Exodus.
Because the Thunderans leave Thundera. Their home planet's being destroyed. It's like it's a Krypton situation. They're all evacuating. And it mentions on there they're not armed because they're filled to the brim with the refugees. And all of the ships are getting shot down except the flagship because as soon as the attack by the mutants start, all of the other ships form a circle around the flagship to protect it because they know it's carrying the Lord of the Thundercats, Lion-O, when he's a kid. And all of these ships are getting shot down and destroyed. And while you don't see it, you hear Panther, we're losing them, Jaga. And when you get a little older, you realize...
You mean this show opens up with like the
genocide.
bad guys
Yes.
murdering innocent refugees?
You don't see the refugees dying, but you see
Holy
these ships getting shot
crap.
down. It's a very moment. Now, again,
I need to check out Thundercats.
but as a kid, you don't get that. But watch it as an adult, and you realize, it dawned on me probably when I was in my teens. Like, I was probably 12, 13, 14. I was watching Exodus because I had it on VHS. And I was like, I just watched genocide. I just watched an entire people, besides half a dozen, die. Packed. It says it filled to the brim with refugees, so they didn't have room for armaments. And remember, and later in season 2, when we first get introduced to the other Thunderans, when it looks like they perished in the flashback, Lion-O's like, well, do we have time to get them? They're still on the planet. Panther, do we have time? And he's like, no, we have to go now or we won't. And you see them take off right as the landing pad crashes. These good guys, these noble good guys, have to leave some of their countrymen behind, or they wouldn't have escaped. And, and they're like, they're leaving us. And even Linkso's like, they had to. If they'd stayed a second longer, the ship would have crashed. They had to leave. They had no choice. And it has these powerful moments. Now, they're not all like that. They're more early in the series. But even later, you see that from time. You see Lion-O doubting himself as a leader. Because this isn't a title he's earned. That actually happens in the course of the series. It's a title he inherited. He's the Lord of the Thundercats because his father was the Lord of the Thundercats. And he's just a boy at the beginning.
And he had to go through the trials to
Right.
become the
And
Lord.
later in the series, he has to go through the trials where he earns the title of Lord of the Thundercats, especially in the last one where he has to fight Mum-Ra without the sword in
And the
Mum-Ra's
claw.
pyramid. Yeah, I think, doesn't he still have the claw shield? Does he not have the claw shield?
No,
I forget.
he had no weapons.
I forget. I just watched that not long ago. It actually has... Again, there are 80 silly, cheesy episodes. This is a cartoon that ran... Transformers ran 98 episodes. This cartoon ran like 133 episodes. In 2 seasons. So 65 episodes a season, basically. 66, something like that. So there are the filler, silly episodes, but it actually has traumatic episodes. It does, especially those early ones, when Mum-Ra calls him boy. You think you can beat me, boy? And later... Though he starts calling him Lion-O and Lord of the Thundercats because Mum-Ra realizes he's not a pushover. And you get to see the arrogance of Mum-Ra. And it's really hard to explain. He hasn't seen Thundercats. Again, this is part of the generation.
Yeah, if you can't tell, I'm getting a little bored here.
Mum-Ra only has one real weakness early on.
Fire?
No. One real weakness, which is perfect for him. One thing that drives him back that he can't stand that makes him leave. His reflection. His own reflection. He can't stand the evil in his own reflection. It terrifies him.
Whoa, I was expecting like some cheesy fire burn paper.
Lion-O finds it out one time because Mum-Ra's about to beat him and he throws his shield up in front of his face.
Ridiculous levels of self-loathing.
Now, and part of this you can do your own hand canon. What if he was good once and then something happened to turn him evil? And this is again my head canon. This isn't established in the show. But imagine, think of like a Darth Vader situation.
No, you know what that actually reminds me of? Get ready for you to both get a little upset. The IDW Megatron.
I see where you're coming from. I don't want to go into that, but I see where you're coming from, where he regrets what he done and becomes an Autobot.
Right.
But think of Darth Vader. Dude, think of the regret that guy lives with. Now imagine there's a part of Mum-Ra, a small part that has part of that. For some reason, he can't stand what he looks like. Now, the sight of his own evil repulses him. And literally, the first time it happens, he's like, ah! He's screaming, and flies away. He's driven off by the evil of his own reflection. And then his pyramid is creepy. It's so well done. If you see the set design for his...
And the soundtrack.
The sound... Oh, God, the Mum-Ra thing literally scares Eric. To this day. He finds it creepy and scary. It's this really creepy tone. Oh, that's another thing
That may be a grown man.
Thundercats.
That may be a grown man, but still to this day, that thing still creeps me out.
And it actually has a really good soundtrack in general. The soundtrack to Thundercats is really well done. Every character, for the most part, besides Lion-O, oddly, has their own personal theme. Even the bad guys have their own theme. There's several different action themes. The Sword of Omens has its own theme.
Especially the Thunder Tank. I love that.
I love the Thunder Tank. But it is one that anytime I see online where, besides the intro, it was just another 80s cartoon to sell toys, and my first thought is, you only know that because you hear that on the internet, you haven't watched the cartoon. Either that or you've seen one episode of the cartoon and it was one of the cheesy ones. You haven't watched, especially those early episodes, because the first 4 or 5 episodes, kind of like Transformers, but not quite. They're kind of connected. They're their own episodes, but they're kind of connected too. Mm-hmm. And you really see Lionel kind of coming in on his own, fighting everybody for the first time, having that doubt. And you see him grow as a character. And now Season 2 gets a little sillier. Season 1 is better. Season 2 still has some great episodes. And introduces new characters. Like I will admit, the pirates do look like they were made to sell toys.
And the Lunatics.
The Lunatics. They never made toys of the Lunatics, though.
Oh, they did. Whatever we do not see the new one coming out next year. That Thundercats cartoon, do not see it.
Don't influence the audience. If they want to watch that, they can.
It looks terrible.
Very.
And I love the fact that like the likes on the reveal trailer far outnumber the dislikes. Like it's just like 10 to 1.
All the way around.
Oh, excuse me. The dislikes far outnumber the likes. There's this many likes, this many dislikes. Most people seem not to overly like it. We call it Thundercats No. But yeah, Thundercats. Awesome. Amazing. You need to watch that. Opens with genocide.
Okay. So I mentioned earlier that number 3 and number 1 are kind of interchangeable. But at the moment, I'm going to have to put
I don't think you minded me going on for a while about that.
Being Transformers Prime.
That's just Prime.
It's a lot like Transformers G1 and a lot of things I love about it. I like to think of it as the G1 cartoon, but a lot more mature and a lot more adult, which is probably why some people don't like it. He mentioned Frank Welker. He voices Megatron in Transformers Prime, but whereas Megatron in the G1 cartoon is very kind of goofy and silly. I mean, he can have his scary moments, but he's never, even
He
for
come up with some odd schemes.
He's never,
sometimes.
dude. He had a giant robot purple griffin in one episode.
I know.
That's a thing. I'm not making that up. That's an episode. Frank Welker's Megatron in Prime is terrifying. That's the Megatron that I can picture slaughtering planets worth of people. Everyone is very much their G1 self, with one exception that I will get to. There's one of my few issues with the show. But just more developed. Again, Megatron is still Megatron, but he's just so much more, evil and monstrous. And he even gets a bit of a character arc with, learning more about how he became. Like, he wasn't just born a monster. But he becomes so evil and monstrous. Starscream, much like G1 Starscream, but actually good at his job. He actually successfully pulls it off for a little bit there. And of course Megatron comes back, and there's a bit there, I don't want to get too much into spoilers because he's going to watch it eventually one day. But there's some really good stuff they do with Starscream and his character, and he grows a lot as a character. Ratchet is amazing. I like how they make Ratchet a lot like House. And that he's very kind of a grumpy, curmudgeony older.
It's kind of like that animated too, wasn't it?
Yes, he was. I think they kind of pull a little bit from animated. He is kind of like that grouchy old war vet medic, and I love it. I needed that is one of my favorite ongoing gags in the show. Bumblebee's done really well in that. I don't like that he doesn't have a voice, which is the movie's fault. But I really liked how they did Bumblebee in it. I love Optimus. Optimus is still very much... He has his moments of weakness, but they're still very much G1 Optimus. It's just G1 Optimus thrown into a very real-world setting, and sometimes that means this person who is incapable of compromising his... Okay, knockout, super conceited, super self-absorbed, super huge ego. I love it. I love Optimus Prime. He's super noble, but he's got his moments where his nobleness falls short. The epic battles, there's some amazing Optimus versus Megatron battles, and it's super, super awesome. Bumblebee is, super great. I mean, I don't like the whole talking to beep, 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 but he's a great thing in the season finale. I won't mention because of him, but it was a really good character.
By the way, I
really
already know what he does in the season finale.
Okay, well
it's great.
It's super awesome. I love Ratchet in it. He's great. Bulkhead's a really fun character. Chromia's great. I'm sorry, RC. Let's be honest, that was Chromia. She was blue. She acted like Chromia. It was nothing like RC. I love her as a character, but I don't know why they used the name RC. She looked like Chromia. She acted like Chromia. Walk like a duck, quack like a duck. You're a duck. But she's a great Chromia.
Talk like a blur, you're a blur.
Yeah, exactly. I love Bulkhead. Bulkhead was fantastic and it's super cool. I love that they brought him back from Transformers Animated, but again, did a bit more of a dope, a bit more mature. I would have liked to see Ironhide in it, but Bulkhead was cool. What else was there to talk about? So when Smokescreen shows up, he's really cool. He's basically Hot Rod, but called Smokescreen. They do that a lot in this show, actually. But I really liked him. When Wheeljack, that's my one complaint. That was not Wheeljack. He acts like Springer. I don't know why they made him Wheeljack, because it's not Wheeljack. He don't act like Wheeljack. He don't feel like Wheeljack. He's not, I don't know why they call him Wheeljack, but he's not Wheeljack. He don't make sense, but whatever. Some great character development. Really awesome, badass fight scenes. I love when they kill Quick Driver. That was done really cool, really effectively. Like it just.
Yeah, they do that early too.
Yeah, it was before the first cartoon intro. Starscream. He's like, Starscream just rips his spark out. Super brutal. Super like it gets really dark and really gritty and mature, but in a good way. It's war. Also, the human characters is one of the few times where the human characters don't feel annoying and grating, but they're actually useful and they stand up. And they're like, hey, no, we're not going to back down. We're just as much a part of the team as they are. We're willing to die for them, too. And it was amazing. And there's some really amazing moments in there where they really deal with, the good guys and the bad guys. And the Autobots are faced with some really tough decisions. And at the end of the day, they're not sure if the right decision was the right decision. And it's fantastic. The Decepticons are super awesome in it. I love the Viacon Soundwave. How did I not mention Soundwave yet? Soundwave is super awesome in it. He's super badass. He's super quiet and silent and deadly. He never says anything, but he's super low in Megatron. At one point, Arachnid's like, hey, we're gonna overthrow Megatron a bit. And Soundwave just knocks her down. He's like, what was that? And all the Viacons are like, oh, hell, Megatron. It's so great. It's so cool. It's honestly, and there's some really sad, depressing moments in it. There's one scene in it, I won't spoil, but dude, I cried, and you probably know the scene I'm talking about. And maybe two scenes where I cried a little bit. It was really tough. And the ending is great. And it ties into the fall of Cybertron video games, which I love. I love the idea that it's a sequel to that. Let's not talk about the sequel to Transformers Prime, because it doesn't exist. There is no sequel to Transformers Prime. Don't bring that show up. It's garbage and it doesn't count. Honestly, it does a really good job of fleshing these characters out and giving them mature and adult, complex characteristics, faults, good aspects and bad aspects, pros, cons. Skydive is a really cool character. Dreadwing was a really cool character. There was a couple Autobots. Ultra Magnus was awesome. I love what they did with a lot of those characters, giving them complexities and making them interesting characters. And there were a lot of great story arcs where a lot of really great story arcs, so they fleshed these characters out and they had epic moments happen. It was all around an amazing show that did an amazing job of taking everything I love about the G1 cartoon and bringing it into a more mature, more adult setting. And the designs did a kind of a good job at a mix between what the movies want to do and cartoons, in that it looked a lot. They were very realistic, kind of like the movies, but also they were obviously Optimus and obviously Megatron and obviously Starscream and obviously Bumblebee and obviously Chromia. I'll die on that hill because it's a hill worth dying on. But it's still an amazing show and I love it. And I could go on for several more hours. Arachnid and it was awesome. Breakdowns. Oh look, man, I could go on. Silas Black. Silas, man, they had Silas in it. Silas was cool. I'm pretty sure it was Clancy Brown if I remember correctly. Don't quote me on that, but quote me on that because I'm pretty sure it's Clancy Brown.
You know
Drop the mic. Bro, he's Luke Luthor in Justice League, which was almost on my list.
He was also the Kurgan in Highlander.
Yeah, man, do you look like these are amazing? It's amazing incarnations of these characters. Best Starscream, best Optimus, best Megatron, and cartoons not counting the amazing IDW comics, which are better. It's just all around amazing version of the characters, and I just absolutely adore the way it takes a much more mature, much more adult. We'll look at the G1 characters in the G1 Transformers universe, and it is definitely my favorite cartoon of all time, unless you ask me 2 seconds from now, in which case it'll be the G1 Transformers cartoon. Do you want me to go ahead and sign off the video? I can sign off the video if you want. Go ahead. Alright, let's sign off the video. This has been Proud1701 and I often, and whatever Eric's name was, he ran away like a coward because he can't take it. This has been us ranking our top 10 cartoons of all time with 3 honorable mentions. And until next time, I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Peace out.
You sure you're not Blur? You sound like Blur. I mean, I could do that at 18, but in my mid-30s, I would have died halfway through.
Ooh.
I would have,
Had to...
breathe. I would have, seriously, I would have died. I could do that at 18. I couldn't do that now. I'd be on the floor. The ambulance would be on the way.